here we go. We got a Fox News alert for you. We just learned that Attorney General Pam Bondi has ordered her deputy AG to go meet with Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former associate, in prison.
Todd Pyro joins us now with the latest. Hey, Todd.
Hey, good morning again, guys. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche saying the following, quote, President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence. If Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anyone who has committed crimes against victims, the FBI and the DOJ will hear what she has to say. I have communicated with counsel for Ms. Maxwell to determine whether she would be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. I anticipate meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days, end quote. Blanche also saying, quote, justice demands courage. For the first time, the Department of Justice is reaching out to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask, what do you know? FBI Director Kash Patel also signaling his support for the move, reacting online earlier saying, get it. Ghislaine Maxwell is the only associate held criminally or civilly liable in connection with the allegations against Epstein. President Trump called for grand jury transcripts to be unsealed, and the DOJ filed the motion for that on Friday.
What even was that? What the hell was that, Jerry? I've laughed. We're all howling. Where do you even get this stuff, Jerry? Jerry, where do you get this chat? Shout out Jerry. This always makes me laugh in the morning. This is some days, man. Some days you do need to laugh. Holy moly, after the last 2 weeks. It looks like, ladies and gentlemen, we've won. And careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. My grandmother used to say. Ghislaine Maxwell is going to sing. She's going to tell us everything. This I have on the highest conceivable. So let's just off the top with the news. I've been on the phone since this news broke at 7 a.m. this morning. I saw this news break and we said, like, let's go. We're going to call every source that we have in the DOJ. We're going to call everybody in the FBI and figure out what we can possibly know about this. And so here's what I can tell you from, let's just call it the most impeccable source you can get from inside of the Trump administration. Ghislaine Maxwell will testify. Ghislaine Maxwell will not only testify that it's already been set up, that's already done, and that her and her lawyers, her family, have all agreed to this, and that Ghislaine Maxwell says that the story that we know is like the opposite of actually what's being reported. I don't know what that means, and I couldn't get further disclosures. But here's what I know. This isn't copium. This isn't hopium. This isn't dangling a shiny object for a fish to bite. Okay? And you reel it in. Got him again. This is happening. Ghislaine Maxwell will testify. Ghislaine Maxwell will meet with the feds. This is the first time that any Fed has tried to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell or get her story. She's been silent on this, never spoken about it at all, about whatever the Epstein op was, which I think it's pretty obvious that it was an intel op. But Ghislaine Maxwell will, of course, know. The reason why this is important, if you've been living under a rock, is that Ghislaine Maxwell was the madame, the confidant, the co-conspirator, the person who sex trafficked Virginia Roberts to Prince Andrew. Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison during doing 20 years for sex trafficking to no one. Maybe we'll get the answers. But I can't, this is totally compatible with everything that we've been asking, which is the most critical piece of evidence is actually not in the Wall Street Journal or not in Donald Trump's lurid paintings, or poems that he writes to Jeffrey Epstein. It's in the physical existence of Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in federal lockup right now, begging to tell her story. And now, ladies and gentlemen, today, Tuesday, July 22nd, 2025, we may well hear the truth about what happened. I can confirm that to you off the top. This is not a hype story. This is happening. I've heard it directly. Told to me to tell to you from some of the highest possible sources in law enforcement in our federal government. DOJ will meet with Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's living madame, will tell the true story. Maybe she'll do so in front of the entire country, as we have members of the Senate Judiciary Committee requesting for Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. Let it happen, ladies and gentlemen. ALX, I want to just ask, I know we already have an incredible guests book today, but I want to get perhaps maybe someone, maybe like if there's any way we could send in an ask to Jamie Comer to talk on this. James Comer, Lauren Boebert just told us she wants Ghislaine Maxwell to testify. Tim Burchett. There's any way to get an ask out to Judiciary Committee members. We were just 1 week ago going live for 5 straight hours from inside the halls of the U.S. Capitol, made a ton of news on this, and those members of Congress have been asking for this, and now they're going to get it. Ladies and gentlemen, prisoners regularly testify to congressional committees. Sometimes they do it via video camera. Sometimes they do it in person with like a warden behind them and a couple cops. But either way, wouldn't that be a fascinating practice in transparency? An amazing dynamic shift here from the Trump administration. Viva Fry will be joining our show shortly to talk about it. And Brett Tolman, former federal prosecutor, will also be on to explain everything that's happening right now. A wild update. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. We've won. We won. Well, hopefully, some of the individuals involved here don't use Bunker. Bunker is how you actually keep all of your data locked away and safe. Bunker is awesome. My family uses it. The reason why we use Bunker is because everything is spyware. Everything, every phone, every app, and it's just spyware. And you need something that is totally encrypted and that is totally off-grid in order to truly store privately some of your most important documents, assets, photos, videos from your family. Things that are of legal import, right? Like wills, trusts, and insurance, tax documents, IDs, birth certificates, and passports, financial information, and so on. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very interesting. This whole Obamagate scandal, which has also burst forth onto the scene, spent the entire day yesterday talking about it. So much of that is because Hillary Clinton was using an unsecured email server. That's how they were able to hack Obama's emails, which is really the heart of the issue that we learned yesterday. We've been doing some phone calls, let me just tell you. But the point is that Bunker was developed by experts with 25 years in cybersecurity and catching criminals. Use Bunker today in order to make sure that all of your data remains private. That's BUNKR. Visit their website, bunker.life/Benny. Use the code Benny for 25% off your family plan today. BUNKR.life/Benny. Use code Benny for 25% off your family plan. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a monster update. You heard it here first, but also it has been spaketh into the public that starting with this post this morning from Pam Bondi, we are going to see Ghislaine Maxwell and we are going to see the physical evidence. Let me explain why this is so important. Let me explain why this is something that must happen. What we learned last week with the Wall Street Journal article about President Trump was that this story is ripe for, let's just call it open manipulation. Do you believe that Donald Trump wrote poetry in his spare time on a typewriter? Like a lurid vaudevillian playwright? Do you believe that Donald Trump uses flowery, flourishing words like enigma? The guy that said, "Kill all terrorists, you dumb bastards." That guy. Do you think that guy like writes enigmatic poems in his spare time, lisping and limp-wristed? Do you think that's the guy? Are you stupid? That's what the Wall Street Journal said last week. The guy who threatened that his red button is big and really works to Kim Jong-un, little rocket man, that guy. The guy who made fun of Rand Paul's hair and Jeb Bush's stutter. Okay? The guy that said, grab him in the... Whatever, it's on tape. What can you say? Well, you know, Trump's had to do his own lashes for that. What I'm talking about here is that we know who Donald Trump is. He's not a guy who's painting portraits. So he's sitting there like painting artistically and writing poetry on a typewriter. Is that Donald Trump? The best known, like the single most famous man walking the earth today? Guy's been in the public eye for 40 years? No, it's not. But it was manipulated into a Wall Street Journal piece that was, by every measure, a hoax, as far as I can tell, because the Wall Street Journal admits they don't even have the evidence. You know what insane that is? So the Wall Street Journal is reporting all of this about Trump. Can we throw the article up just one time, please? Just throw it up. You saw it last week, but this is what's bound to happen. It's gonna be Russiagate 3.0. Russiagate was all this like, oh, one time in a hotel, a Trump George Papadopoulos once met a guy. One time, I think Papadopoulos is coming on the show. Is that right, ALX? Yeah, I think Papadopoulos is going to be joining us, I think, on the show, maybe tomorrow. Yeah, okay, tomorrow. So all these guys, General Flynn is a Russian asset. They were able to do this. They were able to cut by all this innuendo, right? President Trump, and now finally all the information is out there, and it actually looks like clearly Barack Obama and his cohort are the ones who are going to be going to prison. But the point is that they were able to hang it around his neck, right? Dead chicken strategy. And you can already see them trying to do this with Epstein. And this is why it's so important. This is why we've been right. I'm sorry, we were right. I don't care. We've gotten so much hate for this from both sides. It's incredible. It's amazing from both sides. We're either like not going hard enough on it, or or we're going too hard on it, and we're all of it. I just don't care, because it's easy to like press forward when you are morally right on this issue, and the morally right and justifiable thing to do is to release everything and to get this entire thing behind us, which is important for the American public to know the truth. As we have held up the gold standard time and time again, what Tulsi is doing right now is the gold standard. She's just freaking go with everything. Just release everything. Good. Okay. We're waiting for the financial records and so on. We've been told by many people that that's coming. So prepare. The financial records is really where the crimes are at. But more on that to come. Ladies and gentlemen, because there is an open question here, the Wall Street Journal can write stuff like this and then can contort this issue into some type of lurid Trump attack vector. And so it's what we've been warning about for weeks, that this is going to happen unless there is full disclosure from the federal government. And now, boom, we've been proven correct. And the federal government has said, okay, you want to write this kind of fake news garbage? Of course, the Wall Street Journal is being sued into oblivion over this. Donald Trump filed a $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal this past week. Yeah. You want to F around, you'll find out. But more importantly, we were right. And so Donald Trump, $10 billion lawsuit against the Wall Street Journal for this. So I guess they'll pay for this, right? Donald Trump's been winning these lawsuits one after another. But our strategy was correct, and it has always been. And it hasn't changed at all. And it hasn't changed because powerful people called us or didn't call us. It hasn't changed because people left mean comments. It hasn't changed because we were right from the beginning. And we were right 10 years ago, and we were right 5 years ago, and we're right now. It's a simple binary that maybe only like a dumb guy who went to community college can understand. But we shouldn't protect predators, and we don't want to pay taxes to predator protection networks. So let's have it out. And this is what it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, from Pam Bondi this morning. Statement. The Department of Justice does not shy away from uncomfortable truths, nor the responsibility to pursue justice wherever the facts may lead. The joint statement of the DOJ and the FBI on July 6 remains accurate as it is today when it was written, namely that in recent thorough review of the files maintained by the FBI in the Epstein case, no evidence uncovered that could predicate an investigation into an uncharged third party. So let's just boil that big wordy statement down to this. They're looking for further evidence to charge people with Epstein crimes. They haven't found enough evidence yet. Now, let me explain something that I think may shock all of you. I don't have all the Epstein files on my desk. I don't got them. They're not. I haven't seen them. I've been able to present to you, and we've done so on a daily basis, all of the publicly available evidence, like the blackmail operation against Bill Gates, for instance, just one example. All of the publicly available evidence, like Prince Andrew settling tens of millions of pounds with Virginia Roberts, like the photos of Virginia Roberts, the photos of, well, Jeffrey Epstein having Israeli prime ministers live with him, and so on and so forth. We've done every interview under the sun, including with Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys, people who are directly connected to the case, people with deep law enforcement backgrounds who have understanding of these kind of things. And here's what I have been able to conclude. There's so much more here. Was the cover-up something that happened before Trump got into office? The answer to that is absolutely and empirically yes. As was beautifully laid out in a 3-hour-long podcast on Tucker Carlson's program just a few days ago, it would be Thursday of last week, by historian Daryl Cooper. Jeffrey Epstein, the true mop-up operation for Jeffrey Epstein was not his murder in a jail cell. That was just the end result, okay? That was the final note. The actual song was sung in 2005 and 2006, 2007, and 2008. These are the years where Jeffrey Epstein was dead to rights on heinous amounts, at least 50, over 100 by the time it was all said and done, sex trafficking operations, including young women and women under the age. That's when Jeffrey Epstein was thoroughly exonerated and given a get-out-of-jail-free card by the feds who were within the Bush administration and then followed up by the Obama administration. Those are the true criminals here. That's the true cover-up operation. That's where it all happened. That's where so much of the evidence is compounded. That's where it all is. And there's so many dirty things that happen there, including but not limited to Jeffrey Epstein getting tipped off about federal raids, the feds refusing to charge, the feds refusing to even look into it, the feds making deals without notifying the victims, the feds running a full-scale op in order to give Jeffrey Epstein effectively his own wing of a prison, Jeffrey Epstein fleeing to Israel, potentially just staying there for life. That was something that was up for debate. Jeffrey Epstein getting a sweetheart deal that would give you diabetes type 2. You know, the guy didn't even stay in a locked cell, that he had his own private security, that he was able to leave the jail 6 days out of the week. The jail door didn't close. He had a whole wing of the prison to himself. You understand these things? The FBI saying he's our asset. The intel agencies saying don't touch him. That all happened in 2007 and 2008. What the hell was going on there? And they gave immunity to Ghislaine Maxwell. That's not Trump doing it. It was the feds at the time. And then that continued all the way through up to this present day until now. Where now Pam Bondi is saying we are actually looking for third parties uncharged. And so we're going to sit down with Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I can report to you here exclusively that this meeting is already on the books. That's going to happen. It will happen. This isn't like, again, them dangling a shiny object in front of us. This is going to happen. President Trump has told us to release all credible evidence if Ghislaine Maxwell has information about anybody who committed crimes against victims. The FBI and the DOJ will hear what they have to say. Please highlight, Klein. Will hear what they have to say. Going on to the third paragraph here. Therefore, at the direction of the Attorney General Bondi, I have communicated with the counsel for Maxwell to determine whether she will be willing to speak with prosecutors from the department. They are. I anticipate this meeting with Ms. Maxwell in the coming days. Until now, no administration on behalf of the department has inquired about her willingness to ever meet with the government. They just went on a massive bloodlust to charge her because of the outrage of Jeffrey Epstein's murder and to put a bow on it, right? That changes now. Careful what you wish for, because you just might get it. Ladies and gentlemen, apparently, what is it? Okay, here we go. Breaking news. Tim Burchett is saying we're going to subpoena. Get Burchett on the show. Come on, we can do it. I know we can do it. Get Burchett on the show. Let's go. ALX, where's the breaking news here that they have agreed? There is breaking news that Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney has not only agreed to this, but is actively coordinating with the feds in order for a full and total review of everything. She is the living witness. That is why it is so important to litigate these things with the actual physical evidence that is living, with the firsthand witnesses, and not with the kind of lurid stories in the Wall Street Journal. You saw how this op was going to play out. You saw how this plays out if they don't just come out with it and with all the information. It's what we've been warning against. You're going to get death by 1,000 cuts, where fake news is going to fake, and they're going to run every conceivable manner of BS story against Donald Trump that they can in order to try and undermine this administration and to carve out against the core of Trump's MAGA base. I think it's Mike Benz that I'm paraphrasing here in saying that this was a MAGA issue, the exposure of the pederast elite, and you can't un-MAGA an issue. So we're going to care about it. And here we go. Hey, Alex, it's on our timeline. It's on our timeline. Grab it from our timeline. Yeah, okay. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney, David Oscar Marcus, tells CNN, I can confirm that the discussions with the government and Ghislaine, I can confirm that we are in discussions with the government, correction there, and that Ghislaine will always testify truthfully. We are grateful to President Trump for his commitment to uncovering the truth in this case. Well, goodness gracious. What an absolute W. What a total and absolute W right now. Massive. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney has confirmed it. Good. You can't be angry when you get everything that you asked for. Kash Patel was up here saying, go get it, right? And Attorney General Todd Blanche is up here saying justice demands courage. This is the man who's going to be actually meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know if Pam Bondi will be there. I'm not sure. I'll be happy to find out. But Todd Blanche is President Trump's attorney, and he's somebody who has defended President Trump in some very vicious cases. You might recognize him from the Alvin Bragg case in New York. Anyway, he's the Deputy Attorney General now. And he is the one who is allegedly going to be personally meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell. She is in federal custody. They're the top law enforcement officials in the country. They can go do whatever they want, right? Ghislaine Maxwell, I guess, has to agree to it, and they're more than happy to. Justice demands courage. For the first time, the Department of Justice is reaching out to Ghislaine Maxwell to ask, what do you know? At Pam Bondi's direction, I have contacted her counsel. I intend to meet with her soon. Nobody is above the law. No lead is off limits. And I can confirm to you that this meeting is happening and is on the books. Ladies and gentlemen. Can it be broadcast, please? That'd be great. If it could be broadcast, that'd be awesome. We've done our homework on this. We've extended as much as we possibly can to engaging in this battle and this fight. And there are some very curious and very mysterious things that went on in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. There's stuff like, for instance, it's a great example. Ghislaine Maxwell's little black book with all of her meetings, with all of her documents, with all of her evidence, that was part of an agreement on the that was part of her charging agreement in order to keep that secret so that no one will ever see it. Well, that's strange. That's a particularly odd thing to do. As we have stated from our sources at the very beginning, the cover-up in this has already happened. It happened about a decade and a half ago, in the 2008-2009 timeframe, and that's currently ongoing, and that so much of it is within the Southern District of New York. That is what is often called the fiefdom, the sovereign district. Please give me that article about Ghislaine Maxwell's black book, please. The sovereign district of New York, they have so much of this evidence, it is under lock and key. This is something that is clearly important for the public to understand. Marjorie Taylor Greene raises new Epstein question over little black book. Yeah. Well, what exactly happened here? As part of what the Maxwell family, and get me that Maxwell family statement, ALX, please. As part of the Maxwell family's agreement, keep the article up. As part of the agreement with the federal government on their sentencing, and what Maxwell's family is arguing here is that she has immunity. Maxwell's family is arguing that because of the corrupt nature of the 2007 prosecution, that she has immunity because the government agreed to never charge any co-conspirators of Epstein's ever. The government agreed that they will never charge Ghislaine Maxwell. And then they go charge Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm saying let's let the evidence play out. But then they went ahead and took the Epstein case and then they foisted it on Maxwell in a quick trial and then locked her up. Ghislaine Maxwell is a monster. I'm not a fan of Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell was clearly, utterly complicit, and probably the most complicit in every crime of Epstein, and was the enabler of Jeffrey Epstein. Obviously, we know this from firsthand accounts that Ghislaine Maxwell managed the young women who were being trafficked and recruited the young women who were being trafficked, going through trailer parks in Florida looking for young women from broken homes. She's a monster. I'm not here to defend her. I'm here to say that she is the most important living piece of evidence and witness to this. And if we're going to have a national conversation, it's time to be out with it. 4 minutes ago, House Oversight just approved a motion to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell. So there you go. There it is. It's happening. Got to get me a member of this committee. Kara, ALX, we got to get one of them. MTG, Boebert, APL, Burchett. Let's go. Ghislaine, they're all in the committee hearing. That's the problem. They're currently. See if they can join live. They can flip the camera around, right? See if they can join live. Let's see. Ghislaine Maxwell's family breaks silence on abuser trial. Conviction after Epstein case closes. Ghislaine Maxwell's family is saying that we were railroaded by the federal government. I'm not here to tell you whether that's true or not. I'm here to say that what is well documented is that Ghislaine Maxwell was granted immunity for all of Epstein's crimes and then got charged with all of Epstein's crimes. And she is a monster, though, if all available evidence is to be believed and all of the witness testimonies to be believed. She's certainly not innocent. But what I would like to know is, well, what she has to say. And I'm sure you do, too. In their first public statement since the FBI and DOJ announced the conclusion of the Epstein case, Maxwell said they are ready to file a writ of habeas corpus in hopes that it will allow her to challenge her imprisonment. She's serving a 20-year sentence. Ghislaine did not receive a fair trial, says the siblings of Epstein's right-hand woman. Her legal team continues to fight her case in the courts and will file its reply shortly as the government opposition to U.S. Supreme Court. They claim a writ of habeas corpus, a court order that requires the person in custody to appear before a judge to determine their detention is lawful, could be on the basis of new evidence, such as government misconduct, that would likely change the trial's outcome. Well, what government misconduct? That's very interesting. Have it out. Explain it. I'd be surprised if President Trump knew his lawyers were asking the Supreme Court to let the government break a deal. Maxwell's lawyer, Oscar Marcus, the same guy who says that the government's been in contact with him and thanks President Trump for his willingness to actually hear the truth on all of this. He's the ultimate deal maker. I'm sure he'd agree that when the United States gives its word, they'll keep it. What he's talking about there is, of course, the deal that the feds cut with Epstein back in 2007. Not in the Trump era. But that's where everything comes from. Everything stems from Jeffrey Epstein being made an FBI informant in 2006. The FBI was investigating 50 counts of child sex trafficking. Epstein started giving up information to the FBI, working with the FBI. There's documented proof of this. Then they dropped all the charges. Then when the state of Florida got reports of Jeffrey Epstein continuing this operation and charged him, and then accelerated those charges to federal charges, obviously, because they're federal crimes as well, Epstein got the sweetest of sweetheart deals down here. Alex Acosta was told to drop everything, every federal charge. He only served state charges. As we explained, he was not even really imprisoned for them. And everyone, including Ghislaine Maxwell, got immunity in that case. So that's what they seem to be arguing here. Maxwell's family says they profoundly concur with the lawyer's statement. Maxwell, 63, has asked the Supreme Court to toss her conviction based on that claim. A Manhattan federal jury found the heiress guilty of helping deceased jet-setting financier Epstein and her boss and off-and-on lover run a sex trafficking ring of underage girls. Ghislaine Maxwell is not innocent, as far as I can tell, as far as I've seen. Obviously, she is every bit a monster. And I'm prone to believe the evidence of the victims that we've read and all of the available interviews that we've seen and played for you. But nonetheless, this is the most critical living piece of evidence that we have. And so out with it, and I'm excited about it. She's serving 20-year prison sentence in Tallahassee, Florida. Her lawyers have urged the Supreme Court to consider the argument that her prosecution should have been blocked under the 2007 deal with Epstein, which allowed a convicted predator to serve just 13 months in a county jail where he could come and go during the day. And the deal stipulated that it would not bring future cases against Epstein or his co-conspirators. So let's have it out. Now, Maxwell has spoken before, very interesting, in the one clip that we have of Maxwell speaking. It's from prison. And Ghislaine Maxwell, from her prison phone, says, hey, listen, Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. What's that about? This I don't know. Hey, guys, this is the call to grab that clip, please. That I don't know. This is Ghislaine Maxwell from her prison, please. She's spoken simply one time. She says Epstein didn't kill himself. I mean, I guess right now would be a good time to monitor Ghislaine Maxwell's cell and to ensure that something doesn't, something that there isn't some Hillary Clinton cackle down a dark hallway and the swish of a pantsuit and the click-clack of 1-inch heels and the tightening of a noose sound for Ghislaine Maxwell as they approach her cell. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Ghislaine Maxwell on her phone from the prison cell. This is all we have from her, stating Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. Well, I would love to see the explanation for this in prime time. Here we go.
No, he didn't. I don't believe he did. I believe that he was murdered. Well, I was shocked. And I wondered how it had happened. Because as far as I was concerned, he was going to... I was sure he was going to appeal. And I was sure that he was covered under the non-prosecution agreement.
Yeah.
But I wasn't in the indictment. So I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even one of the co-conspirators.
Be very interesting. Why don't we pull we've used that clip a lot, but it seems like there's a lot more that she says. So I'd really like to pull this full source clip for that. Maybe let's go through it today and we can report back. It's a very important, this is a very important issue. It's the only way that we're going to solve it. Anyway, I'm very happy. I'm very, very happy that we've been part of this process. We've been pushing for this, and as this is an incredible win. There's no other way to say it. So much hate leveled at this channel, so much criticism from both sides, and we have pressed forward in order to get to this moment because it's right. And you don't have to bend the knee when you are in the pursuit of truth and you have salt and light on your side. No, there is no party that should ever operate as protectionist for predators and predator enablers. Cindy McCain up saying, oh, we all knew what Epstein was doing. We just refused to stop him. Like, it's just utterly grotesque what our politicians were doing. I think there's going to be a lot of very nervous Democrats in this. Now, when the rubber actually hits the road, there's going to be a lot of very nervous people. Do we have the Cindy McCain clip? Okay. There's going to be a lot of very nervous people because we now know that it's real. And we're not going to have any ambiguity here, is Cindy McCain explaining, ladies and gentlemen, that everyone in D.C. knew what Jeffrey Epstein was doing. They just refused to do anything about it.
Epstein was hiding in plain sight. We all knew about him. We all knew what he was doing. But we had no one that was, legal aspect that would go after him. They were afraid of him. For whatever reason, they were.
So, wait a second. If you all knew what he was doing, lady, your husband was running for president in 2008. Let's see. When was Jeffrey Epstein skating? When were the feds giving Jeffrey Epstein this diabetes type 2 sweet deal? Oh, yeah. When your husband was the presidential nominee, John McCain. When you were the potential first lady, God help us. She's sitting here acting like, yeah, I'm just totally helpless. Yeah, your husband is leading the entire Republican Party when all of this is happening. She's sitting here. She has the audacity to sit here at a sex trafficking conference. They all are at these conferences. Jill Biden, it's amazing. Like, the worst offenders always are. It's just the way that evil works. It's so haughty. Jill Biden is a part of the Save the Children, or she's like a board member on Save the Children. Right. Okay. No word about the 500,000 lost children over the open border. It's amazing. It's an important, obviously it's something that we're going to see who's truly innocent here, and you'll know it by their actions. And we're going to see who's trying to hide things when you watch Democrats like Dick Durbin block further motions of the release of the Epstein client list and so on. The Senate has a lot of information. The House has a lot of information. And it looks like, the truth shall set you free, as ever. We asked 1 week ago Mike Johnson about this. And we said, yo, Mr. Speaker, what should happen? And it's amazing, the clarity from which Mike Johnson spoke. I was actually stunned when he was saying it. He was like, listen, the DOJ needs to do a better job of explaining what they're doing and getting to the bottom of it and making sure the American people know that they've seen everything. Okay. And that's the only way that you protect Trump. Do you understand? This is how you protect Trump against these articles. Trust me, there's 50,000 more of these articles being written with fake evidence. They won't even give you the evidence. The Wall Street Journal won't even cop to the actual evidence of the Trump letter to Epstein because they don't have it. Apparently, it was leaked to them by the DOJ. But if you don't want an article like that every single day for the next 2 years, then you have to engage in this level of transparency. It's a protection mechanism for President Trump. It was never an attack vector on President Trump. It was us muscling through to do the right thing. Okay, we explained ourselves there. It just rings like a bell. Probably be the last time we ever play it, but this made international news. Us talking to Mike Johnson about us having the balls to just ask Mike Johnson about it. We were the first people to. This is the show that clip's gone viral. Do you want to know why the show is like kind of rocketed? Because we've been asking the right questions for years. Our clips from 3 years ago have gone viral. Asking Kash Patel about this. We were the first people to ask Pam Bondi about this a day after she was sworn in. And we were the first people to ask Mike Johnson about it. And we got like a crystal clear answer. Here we go.
A question here about it that concerns either testifying or testimony for Ghislaine Maxwell, potentially before Congress, or if you would support members like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Anna Paulina Luna on the release of subpoenaing the Epstein documents from the DOJ, whether you would support either of those.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Marjorie or Anna about that specific subject, but I'm for transparency. We're intellectually consistent in this. Look, Reagan used to tell us we should trust the American people. I believe in that principle. I know President Trump does as well, and I trust him. I mean, he put together a team of his choosing, and they're doing a great job. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And you know, Pam Bondi, I don't know, when she originally made the statement, I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, they were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved so that they can deal with violent crime and public safety and election integrity and going after Act Blue and the things that the president is most concerned about, as we are. So I'm anxious to get this behind us.
Yeah, and I can see that because there's so many victories and there's so many wins that are happening.
We just had the most incredible 6 months of any administration, arguably in the history of the United States. There are so many accomplishments. It would take us a stack of papers this high, and yet we're having to spend our time talking about this. Let's get it resolved.
That's going to be wildly refreshing for this audience, and to speak on behalf of them, to hear somebody just say, let's just have transparency with the American people, get it out there, and there's no reason to protect predators, right? So. I mean,
of course.
What, you know, this is the family values party. Let's just do it.
What Epstein was involved in was an unspeakable evil. We've got to stand against it, not just in word, but in deed. And so we'll see what happens. Look, I do trust the president. I know his heart and head is in the right place. I don't question that at all. And I'm convinced they're going to sort this out.
We loved that answer. I did. I don't care. You know, you are entitled to your opinion in the chat. I love the fact that we were able to get that kind of clarity. Isn't that exactly what they're doing now? Mike Johnson's sitting there going, yo, the American people have a trust deficit here. The best way to restore trust is to trust bridge. And the way you trust bridge is you're honest with people. You respect them enough to tell them the truth. And so out with all of the evidence, enough of the lurid catfishing and red herring garbage from the Wall Street Journal. Let's have it out. Having Ghislaine Maxwell testify and do it publicly is the way. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a way for you to get out of debt. If you are in debt, it is a very important thing. There are a lot of important issues to this country. But if you are in debt, well, who can blame you, frankly? Gas prices, grocery prices, home repairs have skyrocketed. It has been such a expensive last couple of years. The cost of things are not keeping up with the increase in wages, if there has been any increase at all. And so it is important to lock in and ensure your future. American Financing can help you do that. American Financing is helping regular Americans get out of debt and saving their customers an average of $800 a month to use their home's equity to finally break free of credit card debt. You owe it to your family to see what's possible. There's no upfront fees, no pressure. It costs you absolutely nothing to find out what you can save every single month. And if you start today, you'll be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. Thousands of Americans are already on board and are cementing their financial stability and future now. Call American Financing now, today, at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219 for American Financing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, somebody who has been locking in with our program and ensuring that we have a future of, well, hot takes and honesty has been the great Viva Frei. Viva Frei, former litigator and somebody who has been hot like a tamale on this Epstein issue, joins the program live now. Viva, what up, G? I see this as a massive W for guys like you and me, and I don't really care about the haters. It seems like we were right all along, and the best way to get out from under this Epstein question is just to be out with it. I celebrate this Ghislaine Maxwell decision. The floor is yours.
Well, no, absolutely. And for those saying, like, you know, just shut up and trust the government, it's a wild thing. I do trust Trump. I don't trust everyone in the administration. I trust key players in the administration. But anybody saying at this point in time to shut up and trust the government, I mean, you've learned nothing. If nothing else, you've learned that there are bad players within the government that might cause an administration you trust to make wrong decisions. So STFU and trust the government is not something I will ever do anywhere, even if I have faith in key players within that government. For those saying also, just stop talking about it, if you want to make sure people keep talking about it, tell them to stop talking about it. Correct. It's the Streisand effect like you've never seen before. But the bottom line, we've gotten to where I think we needed to get from the beginning. And it's what I said from the beginning. When we're being told in this unsigned, undated memo, Epstein killed himself, there's no blacklist, blackmail list, and there's no client list. I'm like, okay, how can you say that based on a file that was prepared by an FBI and DOJ that you are now criminally investigating? Hopefully charges will follow. You can't. And they weren't, if they were saying, like based on our review of the file, Epstein killed himself. Well, it was a little too subtle for the mainstream to appreciate, but also a little too subtle for their own good. If the argument is that we could never rely on that file from the get-go, that should have been the messaging from the get-go. Trump comes around and says, now we can't trust that file. Hallelujah. That was exactly the question that I had been asking from day one. How are you relying on anything within this file? So, what Pam Bondi announced today, welcome, and it means that they're listening. And it's not a question of holding people's feet to the fire to the point where you don't forgive them for past transgressions, past poor performance. That people can make up for what they've done wrong to the extent they're of good faith. So we're not presuming bad faith here. The rollout was screwed up. The messaging was conflicted and mutually conflicting. Now we're at the point where Trump has said publicly, you can't rely on anything in that file. That's what we've been saying from the beginning. So start from scratch-ish of sorts. Get Ghislaine Maxwell to testify under oath. I'm not sure perjury is going to be her biggest concern at this point. I think her biggest concern is making sure she doesn't get Epstein, whatever happened to Epstein. But it's responding to the legitimate criticism and concerns of the people who put Trump and his administration in power, and it's a welcome turn of events.
What a great point you just made. Because over the past few days, we've seen how utterly unreliable, duplicitous, seditious, and potentially treasonous the federal government has been against Donald Trump. And the lengths at which they were willing to break entire organs of the federal government and intel agencies to get Trump. And so now, on one hand, we've seen those bombshells disclosures from Tulsi Gabbard. And on the other hand, it's like, but trust all the same people to be totally honest with you about their intel op, sex trafficking kids. Am I in bizarro world? It's like there's almost been a reset of reality here. It's welcome.
People are under the misapprehension that because Trump is in power and we trust Trump, and we do, I do, period. Doesn't mean I won't question it. Doesn't mean I won't issue what I feel to be legitimate, sincere, constructive criticism. Trust Bongino and I trust Patel. Doesn't mean that we're not going to say, I think you might have not misspoken, but making some critical mistakes here. We're forgetting that there's 33,000 employees with the FBI. I know that Patel has faith in them. Some people say having faith in that institution might itself be a mistake, a problem, whatever. 33,000 employees. You think there's no saboteurs within there who are trying to sabotage Patel, the people that we trust? Oh. Within the CIA, it's called the deep state for a reason. And it's not because you have a couple of key figureheads who might be doing a very good job that the deep state has suddenly disappeared. And so, you got Hegseth in charge. We trust Hegseth. You got Tulsi Gabbard in charge. She's revealing the literal criminal corruption within the government. And then you have people saying, well, Trump's in charge, so STFU and trust the government. Sorry, there are people within the government that I believe are trying to sabotage Trump and his administration in real time. They need to be weeded out. But telling the base that put Trump in power, stop complaining, Epstein's nothing, move along, nothing to see here. I mean, that's the surest fire way to keep people talking about it. That might have been the plan all along. And in which case, all of us are fulfilling our respective roles in this ecosystem. But it was never a question of criticizing Trump to tear him down. These are big mistakes that were avoidable. And we're now coming around to the point where Bondi is saying now what she should have been saying from day one. Yeah. She can't take back what she said. She might have overpromised and undersold. But right now to say, we can't trust that file. So the best way to resolve that transparency, get Ghislaine Maxwell to talk. That's about bloody time. Maybe it should have been done on day one, but it's not too late now. So we're at the point now where it's better late than never, because what was done poorly can be rectified in real time.
So you make so many great points here, Viva. I mean, you just starting off with the way that this was rolled out. I still, in my heart of hearts, and I haven't gotten the right answer to this. I have sources inside the FBI and inside the DOJ, but I haven't gotten a square answer on this one. Like, was this a Dobbs level leak? Because it just didn't seem right the way that it was rolled out. I still have a hint inside of my suspicions and instincts that there was something that was untoward or some type of dark force when it comes to this actual release, the release of this memo. It didn't seem completed. It was unsigned. It was undated.
The logo, like the logo was off. There's
what the hell, man?
There's bizarreness about it, but also bear in mind, we're in the wake of the alleged leaked, the classified info that the strikes in Iran didn't do the damage that the administration was saying.
Right. They already did.
And then people say that's a leak. That was a leak from an activist hack within the administration that's trying to take down, make Trump look feckless. So it couldn't happen again 3 weeks later. I mean, come on. This doesn't make any sense. This memo, the way it was rolled out, leaked to a vitriolically anti-Trump outlet, then uploaded in the dead of the night to the DOJ website, unsigned, undated, Todd Blanche, a week after the damage is done, saying, no, everyone signed off on it. I don't think the people allegedly who were threatening to leave the FBI signed off on this.
Yeah.
So whether or not it was just a horrible screw up because the administration sincerely but wrongfully thinks this is a non-issue and people should only be celebrating the successes and move on from Epstein, whether or not they think that they weren't prepared, it was just a botched rollout, or whether or not there are people within that are trying to make the FBI look not just feckless, but like crazy conspiracy theorists.
Yes.
Right now, everything Patel and Bongino have been saying for the last few years, that all of a sudden people are saying, no, they've now, seen the light. They're confirming it. They're confirming that the file that the FBI was working with was corrupt, potentially had evidence deleted. Trump was saying evidence added. I think it's much easier to delete and destroy evidence than it is to fabricate false evidence. But they're telling us that now, which is what we've been saying from the beginning. Correct. So thank goodness it's coming. The question's going to be, is Ghislaine Maxwell's testimony going to be behind closed doors, in camera? Are they going to redact or not disclose portions of it where people are always going to say, oh, now that, there's no transparency here. I can understand there's good reason why it can't be live and public congressional hearing, but I think that's where it needs to go to some extent. And then the question's going to be, can they actually bring charges against hitherto unindicted or unknown co-conspirators in light of the Acosta sweetheart plea deal that seems to have given immunity to Epstein and unindicted co-conspirators, known and unknown? So that is the next hurdle to get around, but let's just see at the very least if names are named.
So I want to burrow down into the details of this Ghislaine Maxwell conviction because it is fascinating and weird, and it is about as weird as what they did in 2007 with Epstein. And the questions around it, I think, are very legitimate. But I just want to belabor one point here that you made that I think is very important, which is if you don't come out with it, the physical evidence, then what you're going to subject the Trump administration to, as we have been saying and predicting, is tens of thousands of Wall Street Journal level publications publishing fake, lurid, or part half truths about President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And it'll become the next Russiagate. It will. This is why I've always thought that this was a bit of a deep state op. I've always thought, my God, you have to defend against this because they'll Russiagate this thing. What we saw with the Wall Street Journal is this insane caricature of a vaudevillian, limp-wristed, lispy Donald Trump writing in a typewriter sweet nothings to Jeffrey Epstein, enigmatically painting portraits for Jeffrey Epstein. Who the F are these people? What is this? Viva, they were about to publish hundreds and thousands of these, right? They could make them up. They don't have to provide any of the original source documents. They just make them up and feed it to us like they did with Russiagate.
I made the original joke that this is so poorly written, it sounds like E. Jean Carroll wrote it, but someone raised a more plausible argument that Ghislaine Maxwell herself might have written it.
Yeah.
The idea that it might be authentically written and authentically drafted and within this binder that was prepared, by an Epstein client, it could be an authentic document, but Trump had nothing to do with it. They wrote it in his name. Someone tried to make his signature. The reality, though, I think someone convinced Trump within the administration that they've manufactured evidence to incriminate Trump. I'll say this out loud, and anybody who thinks I'm stupid, you can feel free to think I'm stupid. Trump is not anywhere in that Epstein orbit of culpability. If he were, it would have been released a decade ago. I can steelman the argument that some people are going to say, well, if they reveal it for Trump, then they'd have to reveal it for the entire cabal, and they're protecting Trump only to protect the entire cabal, so they decided to go with lawfare, try to jail him and then try to kill him. I don't believe Trump personally is anywhere implicated in this. Maybe people within his orbit have something to do with it. what's his name? The guy standing behind Trump in the time he was talking about Epstein, who was the next Luddick. You know, the fact that he ends up being literally the next door neighbor to Epstein, that in and of itself, although not incriminating, could cause people to ask some questions. But someone convinced Trump that there's a risk that they've manufactured evidence to incriminate Trump. And I don't know if he believes it, but that's an insane proposal. To manufacture evidence that would withstand the scrutiny of the interwebs, I think is virtually impossible. To destroy evidence is much more likely, which is what I think they did, which is why I think Trump took the wrong tact on this. Oh, if we release it, you know, there might be something in there that's going to incriminate me, but not releasing it is exactly what they want, because not knowing what's in there allows everybody to say everything they want about Trump, however stupid and however defamatory it is. And so I do say transparency every day of the week, but at least now they've confirmed the file is corrupt beyond reliability, which means that memo is now, you know, take it with a grain of salt, or take it with the absence of signature and dates that came with it. And now what do? Basically try to start from scratch, reinvestigate, examine some of the victims. Virginia Giuffre, unfortunately, is no longer available.
Of course.
You know, I say allegedly. There's some people who believe that she is still alive, but there's people who believe Epstein is still alive. I don't believe either of those two things, but you know, start from scratch if you have to.
And they're together.
If it's beyond the statute of limitations, so be it. If there's a criminal conspiracy, you know, you have arguments around the statute of limitations. We know that there are unindicted co-conspirators based on the blanket immunity given by Acosta in 2007. The fact that Acosta was brought onto the Trump administration doesn't incriminate Trump in any of this. And Acosta left as soon as he came because of this scandal. But what happened in 2007 is where people need to start. And I had Mike Benz on last week, and he's like, why haven't they done a name check, whatever he calls it, within intelligence to see where Epstein's name came up, not in the FBI files, but in CIA files?
Correct.
So that might be the next step, but look, it's a good start. Bondi has now started to right the mistake that was an unforced error and that they got rightly criticized for.
So really quickly, Viva, what do you know about Ghislaine Maxwell's prosecution? What do you think will happen next? Do you think she actually has a case here that in saying, wait a second, the government agreed to not charge me, I have immunity?
I mean, I have to revisit that. I wouldn't venture an opinion right now. That would be, if they went through the trial and convicted her, I don't know that you know, it would be an amazing thing to succeed on appeal to say I was included in the non-prosecution or immunity, unindicted co-conspirators, known or unknown. But her trial in and of itself was, again, like I called it a P. Diddy trial, or I didn't call it a P. Diddy trial at the time, but it was a trial that seemed like the prosecution itself was the cover-up. You had Maureen Comey doing her bestest during that trial to redact unnecessarily so, and you know, she had a judge who didn't allow it, but you saw the intent. So the conviction of Ghislaine Maxwell for sex trafficking to nobody except Jeffrey Epstein, no clients, no nothing, despite what we all know of unindicted co-conspirators who were involved with Epstein. It's implausible, I think, on its face. It would be interesting to hear her talk, to hear what she would have to say. Some people will never believe anything she has to say. The question is going to be what evidence does she still have access to that could not ratify, but confirm or support what she has to say based on, you know, what might have been destroyed within the FBI file itself. But Benny, it drives me crazy because you had Pam Bondi saying that the SDNY FBI office under Maureen Comey, or at least within her control, was not communicating documents, was not responding to requests from the AG. Then we're told to trust the memo. Then we're told that the file's been corrupted. And now we're told that we're going to go and examine Pam Bondi's going to examine or, you know, bring Ghislaine Maxwell forward to talk. So we're in the right direction. And I think it does show you that not STFUing does yield positive results when it's constructive and actionable criticism.
Yes. Okay. I do truly wonder, Viva, what they're going to get out of this. Ghislaine Maxwell's family has made a lot of noise about saying her story it's all been a lie. Everything you've heard has been a lie. We have so much more evidence. We got railroaded by the government. Her lawyer is out thanking Trump for this opportunity. And according to my sources in the DOJ, it's happening. So like it's happening, like the deal's already been set. Like they're gonna meet with her, and the Todd Blanche is gonna be there. I don't know if Pam Bondi's gonna be there, but it's gonna happen. So what do we get out of that? I don't know. House just voted to subpoena her, so we'll see.
It's fantastic, but you know, it's not to say having lost faith in any specific members, but when you've had members of the administration who have already taken a hard position on this, I'm not sure that they're the best ones to be meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, who might contradict some of their prior statements. I think it would be better to get fresh faces in here who are not marred by prior statements, which were definitive that might be contradicted now. So set that aside. It's a good start. I still think we should adopt the Mike Benn strategy. Ask why the CIA hasn't done the name search for Epstein. Ask for the results of that. Ask for the disclosure of the Acosta 2019 or 2020 deposition to see what was mentioned in that. And then, we'll see where it goes from there. Get additional information, see what doors it opens, see what, Pandora's boxes it opens. And if it leads nowhere, it leads nowhere. The problem is, I think it's going to lead somewhere. And I say that's a problem. I think the administration is on it. They've heard. It's not just about Epstein. It's about two-tier justice. It's about deep state potentially corrupting, blackmailing individuals. And at the end of the day, it's also about child exploitation. And you're not going to get people to shut up about Epstein's child exploitation just because the FBI is rightly and righteously going after other pedos and other child abusers. You can do two things at once. And with an administration like this, people are expecting the administration to do way more than two things at once.
It is wholly honorable and within your right as a member of Trump's base, MAGA base, and a supporter of this freedom movement to say, I don't want to pay taxes to pedophiles. You're totally justified in saying that, or pedophile protection networks, whether that be the CIA, whether that be the FBI, whatever it was. And we have plenty of smoking gun evidence that that's what happened. It's totally within you. You are morally justified to say that. You're on the side of right when you're saying that. So don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Viva Fry is one of those people who's been making that call from the wilderness. Here's his social media. You can join him with his 750,000 subs on X and hundreds of thousands of other subs on Rumble, where he has a show weekly. And Robert Barnes has been on a couple times too, Viva. So it's been exciting. You are clearly changing the dynamic in the legal chatosphere, and we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Benny. Have a good one.
Godspeed, man. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a wild time to keep up with the news. It's an important time to obviously lock in and make sure that you are connected. We are going to be connecting with an incredible next guest, somebody that you know very well, just the absolute all-star. It's like a 92 all-star NBA team. It's like the literal dream team. Brett Tolman on, as we had Mike Davis, Julie Kelly, General Flynn on yesterday, Trump's lawyer, David Schoen, and it's just our absolute honor to be bringing on Brett Tolman in just one moment. The way we are able to connect, ladies and gentlemen, is Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile keeps us locked and loaded. It keeps us able to bring you this show when we're on the road, when we're here in the studio. It is the backbone of what we do. And when we saw Pam Bondi release this statement this morning, obviously it's our Patriot Mobile devices that let us speak this truth and spaketh it quickly. That's because Patriot Mobile is available on all three major networks. They're quick, fast, and in a hurry. Ladies and gentlemen, they get us locked in. We were able to switch with absolutely no hassle. So can you. Patriot Mobile's 100% US-based customer service team will get you activated on the only Christian conservative wireless provider in America. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny or call 972-PATRIOT. Use promo code Benny to get a free month of service. Switch today. patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT. Ladies and gentlemen, we're calling for a Patriot to join our show right now. His name's Brett Tolman. He's the executive director of Right on Time, Right on Time, and Right on Crime. It's Brett Tolman. Let's go. Right on Time. My wife would love for me to be the executive director of Right on Time. I'm often late. So would the production team, actually. I'm late because this morning, Brett, I'm chatting with people that we know inside of the Department of Justice, confirming with me that this meeting is going to happen with Ghislaine Maxwell, and that they're going to get to the bottom of it. They're going to expose all of the available evidence on this case, and it's something we've been calling for a long time. I think it's very important, but nonetheless, I'm not the subject matter expert. Brett, the floor is yours. What do you think about this announcement this morning that Ghislaine Maxwell will be meeting with the DOJ in order to give her side of the story?
Betty, thanks for having me on. The thing that really stands out to me is probably something that might be a little subtle for most Americans to comprehend.
Please.
The entire case, the entire Epstein case, was backwards from the beginning. It was not a case in which they took the traditional DOJ approach to try to unravel a massive conspiracy. And in any other case, you would start with lower levels, and you would give them, something in exchange for their cooperation. And you would go up the chain. You would start with victims first, of course, and then you would start to go up the chain, and you would piece together. And Ghislaine Maxwell, not having had any conversation with anyone in DOJ or any prosecutor, all the way back to Acosta or all the way back to the FBI at the time, is one of the most stark and bright flaws of the Epstein, case in general, that it's shocking to hear that she's going to have this, this meeting for the first time. And Benny, how do you conclude, if you're the FBI, that there really is no there in the Epstein case if you haven't sat down with the leading co-conspirator or the alleged co-conspirator? Because she does state that the facts are wrong and that the perception is wrong. So for me, I saw this case at the very beginning and scratched my head, and I knew that there was something very foul in the investigation because it was so inconsistent with historical, traditional best practices of the Department of Justice.
Brett, we had on a mobster last week who shared a cell with Jeffrey Epstein, and he said something remarkable to me about Diddy. He said, listen, when the federal government's trying to cover something up when they charge a RICO case without any co-conspirators, and they don't even try and bring down, he's like, I was part of 7 RICO cases. Like, guess who they went after first? Me, right? They go after the people who are part of the crime. That's what RICO means, right? And so this entire case, he says the Diddy case was clearly the prosecution was the cover up because they didn't charge anybody else in Diddy's crimes. And of course, Diddy skates. Thanks, Maureen Comey. Same thing seems to have happened here with Epstein. Do you agree with that, Brett?
Well, I agree that a conspiracy is a case that the Department of Justice defaults to when they know there are more than one involved persons, targets of their investigation. They will expand on that and include the others in order to secure their cooperation. Now here, they did not charge. They charged Ghislaine and they charged Epstein, but they did not even announce, unnamed co-conspirators, individuals that would have participated and would have been there at the same time on the island where there were underage girls. That's at the heart of the failings in this investigation. I agree with your prior guest that, I brought RICO cases. I worked on RICO cases. We went after, the King Mafia disciples, a gang that was wreaking havoc, and we pieced together every single co-conspirator, and then you charge it and you dismantle it and you hope that you get everybody. That was what was odd, was there didn't seem to be anybody attempting to get everybody in this case. Instead, they pinned it on Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and that was it. And there was nothing else that we were told or were able to see.
Brett, I've been dying to talk to you about what happened in 2006, 2007, 2008 with Epstein. And as we've gone through all of the government's documentation, and we've done so very thoroughly on this program, it seems to be in the absurd, the deal that Jeffrey Epstein got. He should be serving, we shouldn't even be having this conversation, right? I mean, he should be serving life in prison. But we have not only FBI open source documents claiming that he was working with the FBI and that the FBI under Robert Mueller cut him a sweetheart deal, but that also Alex Acosta said he was, belonged to Intel. And then Jeffrey Epstein was able to skate with this immunity deal that Ghislaine Maxwell is allegedly going to argue, which is, have you ever seen an immunity deal like this? Have you ever seen a structure of charges given to a predator like this, Brett, in your experience?
I've not seen it, Benny. And not only have I not seen it, I've seen always the exact opposite, which is a refusal by DOJ to give the deal to the kingpin. Now, will they work kingpins? They will. They'll bring them in. They'll work. They very rarely get what we refer to as a kingpin. So a top criminal who leads an organization, a criminal organization. If they do get them, they'll work them. They may get some benefit. They may give them, some consideration, but that consideration is not to walk free or to get a slap on the wrist. It's typically very serious still. And just they have to have some incredible information in order to get sweetheart deals. What we don't ever see is the main target of the criminal operation being given not just sweetheart deals, but appear to have been protected by those that were tasked to root out and expose the full, criminal operation. And so we have next level protection that was going on. Alex Acosta, a good man, a friend of mine, we were U.S. attorneys at the same time. I know when he says that he got a top-down message, he's honest about that. That is not something you make up. I remember as U.S. attorney getting top-down messages, and they're very uncomfortable, and you have to assess whether or not it's the right thing to do or not, because Alex Acosta had separate independent authority than the Department of Justice. They cannot tell him what to do. They can insist, they can order, but he has his own separate authority. It is only the president of the United States that can remove a U.S. attorney. So what was it that was so compelling that it would push someone like Alex Acosta, who I know wants to protect children, wants to root out this kind of evil in our world? What was it that was so compelling? It would have to be from the highest sources of our government, indicating to him some factors or considerations that were compelling enough for him to authorize the deal that he got way back in 2006. And remember, Benny, this was at the same time civil lawyers like Paul Cassell, who became a federal judge, but then left the bench and represented a victim of Jeffrey Epstein. They were uncovering faster and revealing more detail about what was happening on Epstein Island than the DOJ was.
So what does this, that's utterly fascinating, Brett. It's amazing. What could you color for us just a little bit? Like nobody in this audience has probably even heard of an experience like this happening. You said that it does happen when you get a call from the top and are told, you got to move a different direction. Can you color for us? Like, what does that mean exactly? Could you unpack that for us?
Sure. Confirmed U.S. attorneys are, they're nominated by the president and they're confirmed by the Senate. They're the exact same authority as the attorney general. The attorney general leads the Department of Justice, but the U.S. attorney in all 94 districts across the country is the president's lawyer in that district. And so there are times where there are clashes, and there were many of us who clashed with Alberto Gonzalez, who was the attorney general at the time. And I was warned when I became U.S. attorney by a very good U.S. attorney. He said, don't cede power to Washington, D.C. And I didn't realize the full sort of, importance of his message. But his message to me was, remember, you are the one that represents the president, and you are in charge of all civil and criminal cases in your district. And if I were to do it sort of honorably, I would also have to be aware that Washington, D.C. does not always have the interests of my district. And I was warned, don't cede power to DOJ. And it is a massive organization, largest law firm in the world, over 100,000 bureaucrats, over 11,000 lawyers. That is the Department of Justice. And so I knew going into it, and I had instances where we had calls and we had heated conversations. And I recall meetings in which myself and other U.S. attorneys sat down, and we were advisors to the attorney general, in a lot of respects. We're the boots on the ground. And we were telling the attorney general at the time, this is wrong and we've got to do it differently. Now, there are times when the attorney general takes, uses the deputy attorney general and says, hey, get that U.S. attorney to do X, Y, and Z. And the thing that the U.S. attorneys need to be aware of is it was never the case that the U.S. attorneys were supposed to just do what the attorney general wanted. They're supposed to follow their oath and make decisions and represent the president in that district and to represent his priorities. When they all work well and swim in the same direction and work together, it can be a force for tremendous good. And we've seen that in the Department of Justice over many, many decades. But when they're not in sync, or when politics creeps in, or when considerations drive that aren't the interests of administrating justice in this country, then we start to see the results that the American people say it's not right. That's not right. Something is off on that, and we want answers. And that's really what they're asking for in the Epstein situation, is they want answers because they have questions.
Yes, it's made my blood boil that anybody inside of the Trump administration has to have any shadow over them or cloud over them at all over what seems to be crimes and cover-ups of 2 administrations ago, right? Back in 2005, 2006, 2007, with the original origin of the Epstein cover-up, and a case that is bewildering the more you look at the actual evidence. Have you ever seen immunity granted like this? Like immunity for all future charges of all co-conspirators? This reads like a Joe Biden pardon, Tom.
Well, Benny, I have tried to get very broad immunity in a few cases before and could not get it. Could not get, you can offer it, but that sort of a broad immunity that we see, I've never encountered, never seen that before.
Do you think that Ghislaine Maxwell has a chance here in this argument? That seems to be the argument, that the feds cut her this deal and now she's being prosecuted, countervailing to the deal that was cut.
Yeah, I used to never believe, Benny, and obviously I was naive. I was 30 years old going into the Department of Justice, a young prosecutor, and I believed when DOJ said they would do A, B, or C, they would do A, B, or C. What we've come to learn is DOJ acts as though they're the 4th branch of the government. And I think the Epstein situation, I think it's rough. I feel for my friend Pam Bondi, because I think it's probably a daily occurrence in which she discovers she's trying to be undermined by thousands of individuals in the Department of Justice who do not want her to succeed. And are there things that they could have done better? And oh, absolutely. But it's overshadowing some of the great things that are being done. This Epstein situation, and she's inherited it. Remember, Correct. She's inherited this. She was in no way the person that was, the point of the spear. Those individuals granted immunity, gave sweetheart deals, didn't seem to have an interest or an effort to actually expose the whole scope of the conspiracy. So everyone was left to their imagination. When you're left to the imagination, not tied down to the facts of the case that we're aware of, then your worst fears are what drives your insight into a case. And that's where we've all been. Our worst fears have been that this is an operation, a blackmail or extortion operation that's gone on for decades, involving some of the most powerful people in the world. If that's not true, let's expose the evidence and see what it actually is.
Done. Tom, Brett, I was thinking about Tom Fitton there for a second, because it's like he's been trying so hard in order to get the government to cooperate. This is why this situation is so strange, that guys like Tom Fitton are so frustrated, Steve Bannon, Tucker Carlson so frustrated, General Flynn so frustrated, and so on and so on. So that's why it's been so odd for the base. I think this is justifiably the single best action I've seen on this, and the government would be really wise, based on what I know about Brett Tolman, to bring you in. You should be the one questioning Ghislaine Maxwell. They should just bring you. They should say, nope, okay, special prosecutor, bringing them back in. They're trying to pull me back in, Brett. It could be one of those cases, right? And they pull you back in and they sit you down and you have a one-on-one with Ghislaine Maxwell. What would you ask?
I'd be very prepared for that. I'd be very prepared for it, meaning I would want to go through all of the evidence. We certainly know there was child pornography and all of that, but I'm talking about the evidence surrounding the young girls, the girls that were there on Epstein, and the individuals that were there at the same time. I want to know the details, what her involvement was. What conversations did she listen to? What did she know was going on? And go through the entire scope of all of the allegations that were out there, both in the civil and in the criminal investigations, and get the most important person outside of Epstein's, her answers to what went on. And then look at, does the documentary evidence support what she's telling us? And if it does, then are there cases that can still be brought against individuals who may have participated in crimes on Epstein Island?
I mean, please don't stop coming on the show, Brett. I know I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but I'm calling for a special prosecutor, Brett Tolman. I'm calling for it. I'm calling for Brett. They pull me back in. Just when you think you're out, they pull me back in. One final question for you. Yeah, yes. Please.
No, it's just, the special prosecutor has become the default answer for the tough cases. Mm-hmm. What I'd love to see is a full-throated, embrace by the Department of Justice. Put Ed Martin on it, who I think can do it, or put a U.S. attorney and assign them who has the authority to come in, and there's no question about the authority they have to immediately go to a grand jury. So if you pull the special prosecutor in, there's questions as to, does that individual, when they do the investigation, do they have the ability to present the cases to the grand jury that are necessary? Avoid all that and the political hand-wringing that occurs with the appointment, and embrace it as the Department of Justice and go after these people if the evidence is there.
You bring up such a fascinating thing, Brett, and I just love relying on your deep well of wisdom on these cases because you've done so many of them yourself, and you've seen so many of these players up close. And you name drop somebody that I haven't heard in a long time, Brett Alberto Gonzalez. He was the Attorney General during all of this, and Acosta was being told what to do. That's plainly clear in the evidence here. And so has anybody even tried to ask a question of Alberto Gonzalez, or let's say the CIA director, or Robert Mueller, who was in charge of the FBI at the time? I think that would perhaps we should start narrowing down who were the people who engaged in the true cover up here, which was those cases in 2006, 7, and 8, a decade and a half ago, right? Donald Trump was a TV host at the time. Stop blaming Trump for this. And let's actually start asking questions of those. Would you be in favor of that?
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, Manny, something. There are different kinds of attorneys general, right? You had Michael Mukasey, who was a phenomenal, brilliant lawyer. His knowledge, his capability as attorney general, he could get into the weeds. He could grasp, a difficult and complex case. You would have had a very different result if Mukasey was actually, the attorney general at the time. He was a hands-on attorney general, or Ed Meese. Very different. Alberto Gonzalez was not an in-the-weeds attorney general. He was a defer to other people and listen and do what other people tell him to do attorney general. So I would start there, and I want to know, I would pull on those strings and find out, where did it come from? I mean, if you look back, Ashcroft was somewhat similar, and you had Comey there that was driving and directing whether behind the scenes, whether subtle, or whether confrontational. Comey was running that Department of Justice at that time. Ashcroft was a figurehead. So you have a very different dynamic when this is going down. Alberto Gonzalez would have to have been told that was the message to deliver to Acosta. Now, it could have come from the intelligence community. It could have come from the White House. It could have come from different, high level FBI or otherwise. But I'd like to know what happened. Who were the people that told, Alex Acosta to do what he ended up doing? And why is that important? It's not to throw people under the bus. It's so that we can try to set up guardrails to prevent this type of manipulation from happening in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Like, this is an honorable and noble pursuit, because something very wrong happened here, and it happened a decade and a half ago. And I don't like seeing it hung around Trump's neck. And I don't like seeing it hung around many of the people that we know that are impeccable inside of the DOJ and FBI.
That's right.
And I hate that this is happening. I hate it. So I want it to end, actually. Mike Johnson said something very similar to us, a week ago when we asked him. Since you brought up Comey, if you wouldn't mind, just a very quick follow-up on Obamagate, which is what we had initially booked you to talk about here. Thank you, Brett, for your pivot. But since you've so elegantly woven that there are some connected parties here, perhaps you could sound off on the Tulsi Gabbard declassifications that you've spoken about on our show before. You've been right about. You've named these names with John Brennan and Clapper and Comey. And perhaps you could talk me through what should happen next now that the evidence is out in the open, and we spent 3 hours talking about all the evidence yesterday. What should happen next, Brett?
Yeah, I go back to the startling for me discovery that for the first time in our history of our country, a president who finished his term didn't leave Washington, D.C. Barack Obama was the first one to stay in Washington, D.C. Why? Why did he do that? Well, he had always talked about wanting another term, but it's bigger than that. When he started to realize that Donald Trump may come in as president, I think there was fear, and I think fear drives bad decisions. And the fear was that someone that was not part of the political machinery, that someone that couldn't be controlled, may end up actually exposing a lot of what went on. Remember, Obama was very good at showing a very, elegant speech and a persona to the American people, and people thought that he was, an honest president for the most part. And yet we're now learning it was the exact opposite. There was a lot of deception, and there were bad decisions being made and hostile decisions to the fabric of our country. And so Donald Trump is coming in. Barack Obama, on the days, his last days, is being told that Russia is not interfering, that the intelligence supports the opposite of the narrative they wanted to pursue. And what do? They flipped that 180 degrees and used that to go after Donald Trump, to try to prevent him from being elected, but also, more importantly, to disrupt his ability to actually be and preside as the president over this country. Think of how embroiled he became. And then when Biden came in, it was Obama's people that were placed in all of those key areas that you would need them to be in if your goal was to protect information from getting out. And that's what we just lived through, and that's what we saw. Tulsi Gabbard has exposed this. An investigation needs to be done. There's issues about statute of limitations, and it depends on the nature of the potential crimes that they're investigating. But even just exposing it for what it is an important step. But I think if there are crimes that occurred and you can bring them, we need to see the courage of the DOJ step up and bring them.
Very interesting. Mike Davis made a lot of news on our program yesterday, saying that because it's an ongoing conspiracy, that the conspiracy never ended, and therefore the statute of limitations continues to run. Do you agree with that?
And he's right. If you can show that there was, in fact, that they engaged in trying to keep the conspiracy covered, or if there were any behavior at all that you could articulate is supporting their ability to try to cover up the crimes, then you can be successful in arguing that the conspiracy continued and the statute of limitation has been told.
And the other major point that Mike Davis made yesterday was that presidential immunity won't apply if he's no longer president and he's continuing the conspiracy. Any legal take on that, Brett?
Yeah, I think he's right about that, and I think, look, the Supreme Court has given us more definitive, answers on immunity than we've ever had in the past, and there is a difference between the behavior that may have occurred once he was out of the White House versus when he was in there the last few days. Mm-hmm. But we do also know something very important, Benny, and that is presidential immunity does not extend to Jim Comey or to others that took part of this, and so I think those battles can be had at the proper time. Right now, there needs to be absolute laser focus on investigating everyone that may have been involved in this cover up, in this grand scheme to defraud the United States citizens out of a fair election and out of their choice in choosing President Trump as they did. It's heartening that there are people like Tulsi Gabbard that are willing to say, here's what we have discovered. Now let's find those in the Department of Justice who also want to step up and show the American people that we are willing to investigate this. And I've told people before, this is not about revenge. It's about a reckoning. Yes. It's about holding individuals accountable.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's so rare to actually have a font of true wisdom on the program. Brett Tolman is one of those very rare individuals who can really speak to these moments with force. And we implore you to follow Brett here on X. You can find him at Brett Tolman, and he is the executive director, again, for Right on Crime. And he's married to a queen. I never actually read that part of your bio there, Brett. And so Godspeed with your Western aesthetic, Buffalo and horses roam, and Brett Tolman for special investigator. We're going to lead that campaign right now. Godspeed,
Thanks.
Brett.
Thanks, Benny.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump is live, just went live right now inside of the White House with the president of the Philippines. We're looking this up right at this moment. The president of the Philippines with a bilateral meeting, Donald Trump, the president of the Philippines, is talking right now. He just arrived. And so we will tune in to this, as is our standard operations
cultural
channel.
Memory of all Filipinos, down to even the school children, is that our strongest, closest, most reliable ally has always been the United States. And that is something that we value, that we are grateful for, and that we will continue to foster as we go on. With the leadership of President Trump, I am very confident that we will be able to achieve that. I think it is worthwhile to remember that it was President Trump who, in his first term, characterized the relationship between the Philippines and the United States as ironclad. And that has been necessarily the case since that time that you made that statement, sir. And it is something that the Philippines will always hold close to its heart. Thank you once again, and we are honored, and it is our great pleasure to be here and to visit with the President of the United States. Thank you, sir.
It's my great honor. Any questions, please? Yeah, please, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. President, do you think that Fed Chair Jerome Powell should resign?
I think he's doing a bad job, but he's going to be out pretty soon anyway. In eight months, he'll be out. But I call him too late. He's too late all the time. He should have lowered interest rates many times. Europe lowered their rate 10 times. We lowered ours none. and it's causing a problem for people that want to buy a home. Look, our economy is so strong now, we're blowing through everything. We're setting records. You know that, you see that. And whether it's the Philippines or anyone else, we're setting records at levels that nobody's ever seen before. But you know what? People aren't able to buy a house because this guy is a numbskull. He keeps the rates too high and probably doing it for political reasons. The only time I remember him cutting rates, I mean, he cut the rates just before the election to try and help Kamala or whoever he was trying to help. He probably didn't know. And he's building a building. He's $2.7 billion. They have a $900 million overrun. What is that? And that was given by Biden. That was another Biden deal. And this guy's building this building that's severely overrun. And what does he need the building for? Why does he need space for more people? So they did a big study the other day, and they called all of the great intellects and the great economists and all of the great everything. And it was 71, and only 2 got it right. Me and another gentleman that happens to be very smart. 69 people got it wrong, and the Fed got it wrong, more wrong than anybody. And you know, he has these think tanks, and they build buildings for people that think. And it's really not thinking. It's a little bit of combination of thinking, but it's something you sort of have or you don't have. They don't. The job he's done is just terrible. He ought to raise interest rates. You know, we should be at 1%. We should be leading the world. Instead, we're paying 4%. And if you look at what that means, that's over $1 trillion in interest that we have to pay. That with the striking of a pen, we would be saving more than $1 trillion. Is that right, Scott?
Yes,
Do you have anything to say about it?
Yes, sir. I called yesterday and this morning for the Fed to do a big internal investigation to understand not their monetary policy, but everything else. The Fed has had big mission creep, and that's where a lot of the spending's going. That's why they're building these new or refurbishing these buildings. And I think they got to stay in their lane. And I think that based on the way they cut rates last fall, they should be cutting rates now.
It's inconceivable. I know the Fed very well, that they can be spending $2.7 billion to build a building. They don't do anything. It's the greatest job. You show up one day, a half a day, you make a little speech, the economy is doing well, the economy is not doing well, we're going to raise interest. And he's got it wrong. That's why I call him too late, T-O-O, too late. And it's really too bad. But it is affecting people that want to buy houses, and that shouldn't happen. And you know, he should lower them. Those rates should be 3 points lower. That's what they should be, 3 points lower, maybe more than that.
I would like to ask both of you one person. Mr. President Marcos, next year, Philippines is going to be the rotating chair of ASEAN. I wonder, how do you plan to balance your relationship between the United States and China? And for President Trump, Kremlin yesterday said if you are going to Beijing in September, they wouldn't rule out a meeting between you and President Putin. Is such a meeting possible? And how soon do you plan to visit China?
Well, we have a lot of meetings possible. President Xi has invited me to China, and we'll probably be doing that in the not too distant future, a little bit out, but not too distant. And I've been invited by a lot of people, and we'll make those decisions pretty soon. Please.
Well, as you say, we are chairing ASEAN for 2026. There is no need, in a sense, to balance, as you characterize as, to balance our relationship within the United States and China, simply because our foreign policy is an independent one, and we are essentially concerned with the defense of our territory and the exercise of our sovereign rights. Now, whether we do this not alone, we need to do this with our partners. And again, our strongest partner has always been the United States. But of course, we are trying to form coalitions and multilateral relations so that those like-minded nations who share the same values as we do, who hew to international law, most specifically the UNCLOS, present that position very clearly to anyone who has intentions of unilaterally changing the world order. And that is how we are guided.
And I don't mind if he gets along with China, because we're getting along with China very well. We have a very good relationship. In fact, the magnets, which is a little complex piece of material, but the magnets are coming out, very well. They're sending them in record numbers. We're getting along with China very well. And I don't mind if the president dealt with China, if that's meant, because I think he has to do what's right for his country. I've always said, make the Philippines great again. Do whatever you need to do, but you're dealing with China wouldn't bother me at all.
No, well, now it is something that we have to do in any case.
Yeah.
Certainly.
What are your comments to the Mr. President? Do you support the Justice Department seeking an interview with Ghislaine Maxwell and George, the Attorney General, to see?
I don't know anything about it. They're going to what? Meet her?
Your Deputy Attorney General has reached out to Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney asking for a new interview.
Yeah, I don't know about it, but I think it's something that sounds appropriate to do, yeah.
Do you have any concern that your Deputy Attorney General, as your former attorney, would be conducting the interview, given?
No, I have no concern. He's a very talented person. He's very smart. I didn't know that they were going to do it. I don't really follow that too much. It's sort of a witch hunt, just a continuation of the witch hunt. The witch hunt that you should be talking about is they caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. When we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
May I ask you about that, Mr. President?
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him. And Comey was there. And Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room right here. This was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. Nice pictures up. They came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one look, he's guilty. It's not a question. I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. Now, the one thing they weren't able to do was to, and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, an admitted fraud. She paid $12 million and the Democrats for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phony report, and they wanted to get that report in before the election. And I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big wisp. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit. We can't put this in. And neither could any other paper. Wall Street Journal's a lousy paper, very, very dishonest paper. As you see, I'm suing them for a lot of money because they do things very badly. It's got a nice name, but it's really, in my opinion, it's a terrible paper, and it can be corrupt. But just so you know, they didn't take the Steele report. It was the dossier. Remember the famous dossier? I called it the fake news dossier. The news wouldn't publish it. And I'm amazed. They had 2.5 months. It was finished, 2.5 months. That was supposed to be what was going to happen. And it got published a couple of months after the election. And frankly, nobody cared too much about it. But that was a big thing. No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones. And then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice. They're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information and nobody will ever see it again. But it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem. But millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country, and people that we're getting out, dangerous people. 11,888 murderers, many of them 50%, more than 50%, murdered more than one person. I hate to say this with such a distinguished guest, but you know, they asked me a question. I got to answer the question. No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state, won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
How crucial is the ammunition hub that the U.S. plans to build in Subic and the Luzon corridor, considering that these will be built in areas that hosts strategic ports as well as military air bases?
You're talking ammunition?
Yes, the U.S. House Congressional Committee on Appropriations approved the budget.
Well, it's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't have approved it.
Sorry?
Yeah, it's very important. Otherwise, we wouldn't. We need ammunition. We're going to end up in a few months, we'll have more ammunition than any country has ever had. We're going to have more missiles than any country has ever had. We're going to have all the speedy missiles. We'll have the speedy ones, the slow ones, the accurate ones, the ones that are slightly less accurate. We have everything. But we will have more ammunition than any country has ever had. It's very important to me.
Okay.
Go ahead, please, Red.
Sir, when you say that you're close to making a trade deal, what gaps remain? And for President Marcos, sir, I was just wondering, do you not think that perhaps the Philippines hosting U.S. missile systems could be considered escalatory by China, especially because they can strike deep into China? Thank you.
Well, it's an honor to be with this gentleman. You know, I've known him and I've known his family actually, but I've known him. And I assume you're from the Philippines? Are you from the Philippines?
Yes, sir.
It's good. You're very lucky to be from the Philippines, right? It's a great place. But we're going to have a very good relationship. I mean, I know you had some problems with another president, and it was not your fault. It was the president's fault. And the country was maybe tilting toward China, but we untilted it very, very quickly. But you know, you had a country that was tilting toward China for a period of time, and I just don't think that would have been good for you. You can deal with China, you should deal with China, but when I got elected, everything changed, and they came right back to us. Say it again. Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
Oh, Mr. President, I just wanted to piggyback off that.
Sorry, I had a question to President Marcos.
Yes. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
It was about whether having U.S. missiles hosted in the Philippines could be considered escalatory by China.
All of what we consider part of the modernization of the Philippine military is really as a response to the circumstances that surround the situation around the South China Sea, and now what we used to refer to as Asia Pacific, which we have expanded now to the Indo-Pacific. And if we would certainly, like in any kind of military spending, we would wish that it wasn't necessary, but it is. And so that is what we are doing. And as an adjunct to the question about the ammunition production, this is actually the United States is assisting the Philippines in what we call our self-reliance defense program, which is to allow us to be self-reliant and to be able to stand our own 2 feet, whatever the circumstances that occur in the future. And the reason that we have encouraged more interaction with the United States is because it is necessary. And it is not just with the United States. It is with all our neighboring countries and even countries as far afield as the Scandinavian countries, the EU. And so this is an ongoing process. And again, I will stress the point that we do this because we feel it is necessary.
And don't forget, just as tantamount to what you're asking, the Philippines were loaded up with ISIS and a lot of terrorists, and they were at very, very dangerous point. And during my administration, we went in and we wiped them out, working with the Philippines, but we wiped them out. But if we didn't go in, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know who would be your president right now. But we spent a lot of time and a lot of talent on going into the Philippines and wiping out terrorists. They had a tremendous problem during my administration, and we cleaned it up. We got them out, and now you really have a good, solid country again.
I believe so. Yes.
How can you
Mr. President, I want to follow up on the housing question.
Yeah.
We've got no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. How important is it we have no tax on home sales, capital gains, to unleash the housing market in this country?
Well, we're thinking about that, but would also unleash it just by lowering the interest rates. If the Fed would lower the rates, we wouldn't even have to do that. But we are thinking about no tax on capital gains on houses. And I'm very impressed that you asked that question because nobody knew that.
Well,
how did you find that out? That's very.
I wonder why there's somebody very close to
There's a leaker. There's a leaker.
I've also got a question. I find it a very interesting world that we know more about two people at a Coldplay concert just hours after that viral video than we know of Thomas Crooks 1 year after attempting to assassinate you. What is holding back the investigation on Thomas Crooks?
Well, they've reported to me and they've told me things, and they really say they haven't found anything that was abnormal. I would say this: the Secret Service was very brave because they were right there and they jumped on me. They made a mistake. They should have had somebody on that roof, and they should have had communication with the local police, who also, I mean, they did a very good job, but they made some mistakes, and we have a whole different group of people now. I don't think anything can happen, but I think we have the best people anywhere in the world right now, and I think they've learned. And they went into him very, in great detail. They gave me the whole thing, and what can I do? They say that it was just a nut job that was looking to do this. And I spoke with the FBI, the new FBI. I spoke to the FBI. If it was the old FBI, I wouldn't have believed a thing they said, because the old FBI under Comey was crooked as hell. He was one of the most crooked. Everybody should read the Horowitz report. Unfortunately, Bill Barr didn't use it. But the Horowitz report, not appointed by me, it was a report on Comey and the FBI. It is one of the worst shots at a human being I think I've ever seen. In fact, the New York Times did an editorial that was one of the worst editorials I've ever seen about anybody. That was about Comey. You ought to go back and get, and Barr didn't use it because he didn't have the guts to use it, or something happened. I don't know. Too bad. He went to Mr. Durham. Instead of doing the Durham, all they had to use is the Horowitz report. And I always felt badly for Horowitz, frankly, because he's a Democrat, I guess. He was appointed by a Democrat. But that report has gotten lost, and it shouldn't be lost. You should all go back. It should be mandatory reading. Go back and read the Horowitz report on Comey and his cronies. And you'll see exactly, we're going to add that to all the stuff that we found. It just confirms it. But what we found is even more so. Now, we found absolute, this isn't like evidence, this is like proof, irrefutable proof that Obama was seditious, that Obama was trying to lead a coup. And it was with Hillary Clinton, with all these other people, but Obama headed it up. And, I get a kick when I hear everyone talks about people I never even heard of. It was this one. No, it was Obama. He headed it up. And it says so right in the papers. Got everything. This is the biggest scandal in the history of our country. And it really goes on to even the auto pen, because it all relates to the same thing. It all started the same sick minds. You have an auto pen, which is a tremendous, well, we don't have a president. We have an auto pen that signs everything. I'll bet you sign everything. You don't have auto pens. Everybody, who doesn't sign? You're the president of a country. But it's all that whole thing leading right up to the end of it is the auto pen. And the auto pen was used by people, and Biden knew nothing about it. They were signing documents that he knew nothing about. As an example, they released the Unselect Committee of Liability. The Unselect Committee spent 2 years grilling everybody, and then they destroyed all the evidence. You know why? Because the evidence made them guilty, and he gave them all a pardon. The Cheney, all the scum that was on the Unselect Committee, Cryan, Adam Kinzinger, and Democrats, and he gave them a pardon. Do you have something else, guys?
I was just going to add one more thing on Adam Schiff. Director Pulte reports that Adam Schiff claims he lived in a one-bedroom apartment. How does a family of four, you're a developer, a very successful developer, how does a family of four live in a one-bedroom apartment?
Now, it looks like Adam Schiff really did a bad thing. They have him. Now, let's see what happens. It's not up to me. I stay out of it purposely. But it's mortgage loan fraud. It's a big deal. He defrauded banks and insurance companies and the federal government. But it's very simple. It's mortgage loan fraud. And you're right. It's a lot of people to live in a one-bedroom apartment, right? But he put it down. But he has a lot of other things far worse than that. So, no, Adam Schiff, they have him 100% on mortgage fraud. Now, if it was anybody else in this room except you would have no problem. But anybody else in this room, you'd have a problem. I'd have a problem. Yeah, please.
So there was a hearing yesterday in the Harvard case. Would you allow Harvard to get their federal dollars back as a part of any agreement with the administration?
No, I'm not giving. Harvard's been given $7 billion. Can you believe it? By the Fed, $7 billion. And we want money to go to all universities, not Harvard. Harvard got more than anybody else. They have $52 billion. They get huge tax incentives and tax breaks on that $52 billion, but they have $52 billion and they got $7 billion over a short period of time. And we have a very hostile judge appointed by Barack Hussein Obama, a very, very hostile judge who knows exactly right from wrong, but we expect to win it on appeal. She hasn't given a decision yet, but she's very hostile, and she was put by Barack Hussein Obama. And generally speaking, anybody that does that, we're gonna have problems with. So we don't expect to have. We won the case yesterday. Anybody that was there, that was a neutral, would say we easily won the case. But a lot of the case, and a big part of it's going to be how much money Harvard gets in the future. That's not part of the case, and they're not going to get very much.
Mr. President, where are we in terms of negotiating about the reciprocal tariff? How far are we
With who?
from
With the Philippines?
Yes,
Oh.
sir. How far
Are you from the Philippines?
Yes, sir.
Good.
I'm from the Philippines. How far are we from achieving?
Well, it's tough. He's a very tough negotiator. So far, we're not there because he's negotiating too tough. In fact, I used to like him better than I do now. He's too tough. But we'll probably agree to something. But he's strong, a strong negotiator. He loves your country.
Mr.
President, when are you coming to the Philippines, sir?
You talked a lot about the severe consequences that those who were involved in the Russia hoax must face. In your view, sir, what are the next steps now that these documents are out there? And Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, the Justice Department would have to act. And we have a very competent, very good, very loyal to our country person in Pam Bondi, very respected. And it's going to be her decision.
Just a follow-up to that, sir. Kristi Noem was in New York City visiting an off-duty CBP officer who was allegedly shot this weekend by an illegal alien who came into the country during the previous administration.
Right.
What is your message to any local leaders who continue to push sanctuary city policies after this nearly tragic incident?
So the only thing I don't understand, because you like to understand things and we're all smart people and all, but why would they allow 21 million people into our country, unvetted, unchecked? You don't allow it. You wouldn't allow people then. He's tough. No, their country's run properly. Biden and his group of thugs, and I don't think it was Biden, I think it was the people that surrounded that beautiful Resolute desk right behind you. They allowed 21 million people, probably much more than that, and many of them came from jails and gangs and drug dealers and mental institutions, insane asylums. Many of them are very sick. 21 million, probably 25 million, probably even more than that. And we're getting them out. Many were murderers, as I said. They killed people. Many killed more than one person. Stone cold murderers. I don't understand why they would have allowed that. There's only two reasons. The vote, because they want voters. That's one reason. I don't think they would have done it for that because they cheat. You know, they're so good at cheating, they don't need that. But the vote, and the second reason is they hate our country. I think they hate our country. I actually do. And it's the biggest problem. I mean, much of our time is spent with, you know, we have the strongest border anywhere in the world now. Maybe even stronger than your border, if you can believe it. We have no people came in last month, zero, which is pretty amazing. I'm not even sure I can believe that. But liberals are the ones that do that calculation. So, but we had no people come in. A year ago, we had hundreds of thousands of people come in. Hundreds of thousands of people. And they flowed in. And if it wasn't for the election, it would have been millions of people came in last year. So millions of people prior to election time, they allowed millions and millions of people to come into our, I mean, you saw it. They'd open the gates. If you took an Alabama LSU football game that holds 128,000 people, I was there, 128,000 people, and I liked them and they liked me. But if you took that and doubled it, that's what used to flow into our country on a daily basis. It's not even believable. And we're getting them out, and we're starting with the worst ones. And we had a man shot yesterday, a police officer who's great gentleman, shot right here in the throat. Probably won't be able to speak again. But he was brave, and he shot the other guy, and they ended up getting him. And you saw the scene where his friend took him to a hospital and dumped him down on the sidewalk. The whole thing was crazy. But why would anybody do to our country what these Democrats have done? And honestly, we can never forget it. We can never forget it. What they have done, the damage that they've done to America is very, very sad. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you guys for heading out. Thank you guys for moving. Let's go. Thank you guys so much for moving for the order. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. How's your health? Thank you. Thank you. How's your health? Let's go, guys. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Keep going. Thanks, guys. Let's go. All right, guys. Keep going. Thank you, guys.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Okay. The reason that I was off for a second is we were getting ready to do Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan is interviewing Ghislaine Maxwell's brother right now, and we're going to be doing a panel afterward. And so I have to do a very speedy sound off and send off here today, but I don't want to miss our verse of the day. And so let's do that very, very quickly. And Godspeed to all of you. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Verse of the day. Proverbs 14:5. An honest witness does not deceive, but a false witness pours out lies. I guess we'll see what happens next. President Trump there having a, I think, perfect answer on the Epstein saga and on Obamagate, and Trump has the right answer. He says he trusts his attorney general and his DOJ to do the right thing, and that he supports all of the evidence coming out. And so that's what we are, ladies and gentlemen, going to be calling for, and what we have been calling for. I guess we will see where this goes, but we're proud of the work of this show. Salt and light is what we are. In the end, we win, and it's an honor to march with you. It's your boy, Benny. See ya.
So, when the truth gon' be, faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to life. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade. Cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.